How do, everybody? This is Greg Knox, and this is the Lament Configuration Horror Podcast. And because we are 1 week removed from the first ever WWE Women's Royal Rumble, I am proud to introduce our very own Glamazon. It's Rhea Fend.
Hi Greg, thank you for the intro. And we are back again with another Video Nasty episode, a beast show to sink your teeth into and hopefully make you howl.
Yes, so these are 3 video nasties we're going to talk about on the show today that are revolving around the topic of hairy beasts of various different sorts. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is our Video Nasty series, so these are the 72 films that are deemed to violate the Obscene Publications Act 1959, or the DPP's Guide to What to Watch if you like really fucked up stuff. So because it's one of those kind of shows, Rhea, I believe you have our usual warning for a Video Nasty show.
I do, indeed. Warning, the following broadcast may contain spoilers, extreme language, violence, and topics considered graphic or adult, not for those of a sensitive disposition.
So, looking forward to talking about the 3 films on the show today. The first one of which especially, because it's a very, very, very fun film, and it's Night of the Demon, not to be confused with a Jacques Tourneur film from the 50s of the same name, which is a really good film and I highly recommend. This one is directed by James C. Wasson. And Rhea, I will leave you to give us the story of what happens in Night of the Demon.
Yes, it's a 1980 film, and the synopsis is Professor Nugent and his students try to track down Bigfoot, but end up uncovering something more sinister at work.
Cool. So this is a 1980 film. This is kind of in the period sort of when slashers were just becoming really popular. But in 1980, we have a few examples of films that may be slashers, which might not be slashers. And this is kind of one of those, would you say?
Yeah, it does definitely fall into that category.
So what were your thoughts on the film itself? Because, I'd be quite curious as to know what you think about it.
I really wasn't sure what to expect. I kind of knew that it was a Bigfoot film, but also was confused by the title. Overall, I enjoyed watching it. I actually think it was probably my favourite of this episode, of the ones we're going to talk about.
Okay, I'll be quite curious to talk about that with you later. Yeah, I mean, what I'll say about it is that it's really fun. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a very, very well-made film, as we're going to go into sort of when we talk about the film itself. But yeah, some of the deaths are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it definitely is a fun watch. And like I say, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's got like quite a weird, unexpected twist in it. Like it says in the synopsis, they end up uncovering something more sinister at work, but it's really not what you would expect. So there's a lot going on in this film. I feel like beast films from the 80s are always quite fun anyway, because you inevitably get a rather large or tall guy in some kind of a Bigfoot or werewolf or Yeti costume, as we're about to discuss on the show. And it's usually quite easy to tell that it's a guy in a costume, which for me makes it all the more fun.
Yeah, I think this one, I mean, compared to the next one we're going to talk about, I think this costume in this one was less kind of skin tight, so it was less obviously a man in a costume.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, although it's still, I don't know, I think they hid like the look of the Bigfoot creature quite well until like the last sort of 20 minutes when you kind of have to give away what the creature looks like. Where I've seen a review where they described it as a cross between Basil Brush and Mick Jagger.
It's quite accurate, actually, yeah.
Yeah, although I wouldn't mind seeing a horror film with Basil Brush in it as the main villain. I actually do want to watch that now. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, get it made. I agree though, they do hide it quite well at first, but it's one of those situations where when you do finally see the beast, you're kind of a bit disappointed, and it's obviously not a film with a massive budget, let's just put it that way.
Yeah, so I don't want to start off on a downbeat note, but we kind of have to. This film is, as you can probably guess for anyone who's seen it, it's very, very cheap. So the night scenes in particular, I don't know if it was just the copy that we watched, but it was very hard to see what was going on for a lot of it.
Yeah, the part that I did enjoy was the beast vision, let's say. So
Yeah.
when the beast, or the Bigfoot, as you sort of find out, is looking around and exploring to sort of find people who are going to be his next victim, which is all kind of done in flashback, which is a weird part of the film, as you'll probably agree, Greg. But you get this kind of red tinge around the screen.
Yeah, so it's red all around the outside, and there's a circle in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what I term demon vision.
Yeah.
Because
So, yeah, it's like night vision. It
Yeah.
usually is at night as well.
Basically, and like you say, it is a flashback, but it's quite curious that it's a flashback of someone who's got their nose and mouth covered. Now, when you watch the film, by the end, you will find out why they have their nose and mouth covered, which makes how they're able to speak really clearly quite unlikely. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, something that I only noticed at the end was how unmuffled his speech is throughout this whole film, where he tells the story through that bandage.
Yeah, because for anyone who hasn't watched the film, the main character gets his face burnt by the creature, and and he's got bandages all over like the bottom half of his face as he's recounting this really long story to the police as to how he ended up in the position that he's in. And he just sounded completely fine.
Yeah, very dramatic with the whole burning of the face thing. Had to be done.
Yeah. And, I mean, as you'd expect from a film like this, acting not exactly great, but it doesn't really matter in a film like this, I don't think, because all it's about, really, is people being killed by, like, Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got a certain kind of charm to this film. I think we likened it to Blood Feast, if you've listened to our show about that video, Nasty in particular, before. The sort of quality, the opening credits, which has blood seeping out of a bloody wound and fills up a footprint, which is awesome.
Yeah, I did like that. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, it's actually very creative and done obviously on a very low budget, but it does kind of give you that same impact even though it's cheaply done and you know it's cheaply done. There's lots of jolly camp kind of lift music throughout the film, which is contrasting to everything that's going on. But I absolutely loved that. And I think even if we weren't watching this film for the show, I would definitely recommend it because I think if you like crappy B-movies, crappy B-movie horror, then I think this is a good one to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the sort of thing you would probably buy on video, wouldn't you, Ria?
Probably, yeah. There's definitely some early found footage vibes in this film, and I think you compared this to Blair Witch Project as well.
Yeah, because right at the beginning of the film, there's a scene where we've got a character showing like footage that someone has taken of a family being attacked by the beast in the film, which is weird because that hadn't really happened before. So some people have tried to claim that this is actually an influence on the Blair Witch Project, which I don't know if it really is, but it does have another sort of similarity to the Blair Witch Project in that you've got, because what the story's about, it's about a professor and a group of students basically trying to find this creature. And before they kind of go balls deep in the woods, so to speak, they basically do interview locals, random locals, who tell them all these stories about this character called Crazy Wanda and kind of all these stories about kind of what happened to her and like this creature. So yeah, it was quite similar to the beginning of the Blair Witch Project.
It was, yeah. I quite liked that quality about it. Like I say, it's got a certain charm to it. You can see that it probably has influenced that film. It's 1980, so the clothing and influences in the film are still very 70s, so there's quite a lot of very 70s looking clothing and haircuts. There's obviously nudity, with this being a cheap B-movie horror.
Yes.
There's a sex scene in a van with a woman with big hair and big boobs, and of course if they're having sex then they're going to get caught by the beast, which definitely does happen. There's lots of blood in this film, be it cheaply done, and there's some nice 70s Y fronts in this film as well. very small pants.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we may as well talk about the deaths, because the deaths are definitely the highlight of the film itself. So you counted how many overall?
I counted. Let's see. I counted 16.
Which is quite a lot for a film like this.
Yeah, it is.
And most of them are hilarious.
Yeah, a lot happens. So like I say, we've got the death in a van.
Well, even before that, the very, very first death in the film is a man getting his arm literally ripped off from his shoulder.
Yeah, happens like within the first 5 minutes of the film, and it does lead into the opening title sequence, like we say.
Yeah, absolutely hilarious. You've got blood gushing out everywhere. And yes, then you have this hilarious sex scene in a van between, as you said, this couple, this woman with her boobs out, all out everywhere for everyone to see. And her noises that she makes while this guy is being killed on top of the van by the demon are absolutely hilarious. You don't know whether she's orgasming or scared.
Yeah, it basically sounds like the same noises as she was making during the actual sex scene, which is quite confusing. But yeah, he comes to a bloody end, and you think that she's going to get killed as well, but actually, I think she dies of fright because she just kind of freezes up, and that's the end of that. We never see her again.
Yeah, and the narrative in this film is quite interesting. I think what the director did was he obviously must have realised that his main story was really boring, which it kind of is, really, for the most part. So literally every kind of 10 minutes, you'll have the professor narrating or telling this story to his group about, like, well, you know, the demon, he killed this person in this way, which leads to sort of random deaths just seemingly out of nowhere in the film. But they are most definitely the highlight. My favourite of which is the next death which is a random guy in a sleeping bag, which is hilarious.
Definitely the best death of the entire film, and we know there are a few famous sleeping bag in the forest horror film deaths, and this one is up there with those.
Yeah, so we had Don't Go in the Woods, which is actually quite similar to this in a lot of ways, actually.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I think this is better than Don't Go in the Woods, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's much of a muchness, but I think this one's marginally better.
Yeah. It doesn't have the guy being killed in the wheelchair, though.
No.
No.
Does have the sleeping bag, so the beast actually gets the sleeping bag and swings it around his head and throws it onto like a branch, which goes through the sleeping bag and impales the person inside.
And what I loved about this was it was the sound the guy was making as he was being, it was like, ah, like as he was being literally swung around the head of like the demon. It was so funny.
Got some very terrible dubs going on in this film. Very exaggerated noises of pleasure and distress, which can't really be differentiated.
Yeah, absolutely. And then afterwards, we get possibly, I would say, the third best death in the film, which is involving a motorcyclist.
Yeah, he goes to relieve himself by the side of the road, and the Bigfoot rips off his penis.
Yeah, which again, absolutely hilarious because you're not going to see it coming at all. I think what they kind of realised when making this film is like, we've got to make the deaths as over the top and hilarious as possible, and they definitely succeeded in that regard.
Yeah, and like you say, the actual base of the storyline isn't that exciting, so having these parts interspersed as flashbacks definitely makes it a lot more exciting, be it ridiculous. He does actually lift him up by his penis and then rips it off.
Yeah.
And then there's another couple of great deaths, to be honest.
Cool.
I mean, the sleeping bag one takes the prize, probably.
Oh, yeah. The sleeping bag one is the absolute best. My second favourite happens right by the end of the film, which is where one of the characters... Now, the thing is, what I try to do for these shows is when we're talking about the film, I do try and at least get who the characters are. So I try and at least get a name. So it's like, it's this person. Even on IMDb, it doesn't really tell you any of the characters bar one or two, what they're actually called. So fuck knows the name of this person. But anyway, he got his guts ripped open, and then he got his intestines ripped out, and then the demon kind of just flails it over his head again, or he kind of tries to whip people with it, which was amazing.
Yeah, so funny. You got a good old pitchfork death thrown in there.
You got to know, I
Face-
love a good pitchfork death, obviously.
Yeah, brilliant. It's a staple of horror slasher movies. And obviously at the end you have got the professor, his face being burned on the hob, which is pretty epic. But, I mean, this is not an on-screen death, but this is probably one of my favourites, is actually, spoiler, the demon or beast baby. When you actually see this on screen, and we do learn that it is killed, but we don't see that on screen. But what we do see is the demon baby, which actually reminds me of Brain Dead, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of see that. Yeah, because the story really, I mean, it's very, very people going into the woods and random people dying, although not as part of the main party. And then the narrative takes a very strange twist midway through, because we meet this character Crazy Wanda, and they actually give her somewhat of a backstory. So we actually saw kind of how she ended up, because she's mute. We still saw kind of how she ended up mute. We see that, you know, she got raped essentially by Bigfoot.
She comes from a very religious background. She was very young when this happened. As a result, she is mute, and love the name Crazy Wanda and the kind of urban legend sort of feel to this, which again plays into the Blair Witch sort of influence that we've got here. Well, quite the reverse. This influenced Blair Witch, I think. So she's kind of rocking back and forth in her rocking chair in this cabin in the woods, which is quite creepy.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. So yeah, there's a couple of quite funny elements to the film, I thought. So the group end up at Crazy Wanda's cabin, and to try and get her to talk, they try and hypnotise her with a key.
Yeah, that old trick, you know.
Yeah, which again worked for some reason, because I don't know how you felt about this, but I felt they were basically being dicks, because like they basically broke into her house. She had a room that was locked up, and they tried breaking into the room, even though she locked it. Clearly didn't want them to go in there, but it's like, we don't care, we're just going to break into this room.
Yeah.
And really, they kind of just got what was coming to them, I guess.
Yeah, because they did everything against her will, and I know she's mute and she can't protest, but don't take advantage of that, come on.
Yeah. Just because she can't say no doesn't mean, like, you know, no means no, guys.
Yeah. One of the most hilarious parts of this film is when they actually go to find out more about this Crazy Wanda. They get a lead from this guy who lives in the forest, and they sort of go knock on his door, and he wants to be left alone. So what do? Instead of leaving him alone, they like set up camp right outside his house. This is like in the middle of nowhere, so it's not as if there's like a lack of space to camp. But they literally camp right outside his door, which I found hilarious.
And they bribe him with a bottle of wine.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. It's like, can we come in? Oh, yeah, go on then. Well, you got me this bottle, so I should really let you in, shouldn't you? It'd be rude not to.
Yeah. And then they make a plaster cast of this footprint that they find, and then they show it to Crazy Wanda, and she goes mental at this like plaster of Paris.
Who brings plaster of Paris with them into the forest?
Exactly. Who was even anticipating that they'd need that?
Yeah, one of the funniest bits of the film is about halfway through they discover a footprint, and they're trying to guess, or they're speculating what it might be, and one of them says it might be an elephant.
Yeah, amazing.
The amazing forest elephants that you get.
Oh, of course, it was an elephant.
Yeah.
What else would it be?
Unbelievable. So yeah, just hilarious film, really, in a lot of ways. As I said, you really, really have to see this one for the deaths, because the deaths really are the highlight. I mean, I wouldn't say the film was like the most boring film that I've ever seen in my life, but if we're comparing it to something like Don't Go in the Woods, it's like that film was just one scene after another, and it was just ridiculous. It just made no sense. At least this kind of had a sort of central narrative that, yeah, wasn't all that interesting for the most part, because I didn't know who any of the characters were, bar one or two.
Yeah, agreed. But, I mean, you've got the professor tying it all together. It is kind of weird that he takes his students away like that and camps with them in the same tent.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was a scene where it looked like he was sleeping in the same tent as one of his male students. I'm like, well, you wouldn't be able to do that now.
Exactly. Very weird.
Very strange.
Yeah, but all in all, I mean, I would liken this to aspects of Brain Dead, which is cool. I would liken this to aspects of Blair Witch Project. Like you say, don't go in the woods, and any sort of 80s slasher, really. I did think this was really fun, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was enjoyable too. I didn't think it was mean-spirited in the slightest, despite a couple of things that, we've said earlier that on paper might sound a bit horrific. It really isn't that kind of film, which is why I'm going to say that it shouldn't have been a video nasty, because it's just too funny.
Oh, it is really funny, but I'm going to say that it should, because it's got Bigfoot rape of a 15-year-old girl in this, and you do kind of have the camera in the shot for quite a while, although not a lot is shown. It's implied. And then she gets pregnant and has to give birth to its baby, which is very distressing. So I'm going to say, yes, it should have been a video nasty.
I think you've heard the very, very expressed difference between a male and a female perspective of a certain thing that happens in the film. Because to me, it's well, yeah, it's happened, but it's it's not I spit in your grave horrific or anything like that. But okay.
Yeah, she's 15 though. I mean, I can see why they banned this, because that does take a rather dark turn in comparison to other sort of fun horror slasher movies or monster movies. That's pretty damn dark.
Okay. Other than that though, it is really fun, honest.
Yeah, it is. I enjoyed it. That was fun.
It is a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it's not available in the UK currently, although I imagine if someone did want to release it, I'm looking at you, 88 Films, then I'm sure it would be past uncut.
I'm sure it would be, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, absolutely a very, very fun film. One to watch with your mates and get drunk.
Indeed.
So the next film we're going to talk about on the show today is The Werewolf and the Yeti, which is a Spanish film. It goes by the alternative title of Night of the Howling Beast, which I think is a slightly better title. Hall of the Mountain King, which makes it sound like some sort of weird fantasy sort of film. Or Horror of the Werewolf, which is, pretty good title. It's directed by Miguel Iglesias, appearing in the credits as M.I. Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strange name. So, Rhea, take us away. What happens in The Werewolf and the Yeti? Or as Tony Schiavone would say, The Werewolf and the Yeti!
Okay. It's a 1975 film, and the synopsis is Valdemar, the renowned adventurer, joins an expedition to find a Yeti in the Himalayas. Whilst hiking in the mountains, he's captured by two cannibalistic demon nymphets guarding a remote Buddhist temple, and he becomes their sex slave. They transform him into a werewolf, setting him loose to roam the mountains, where he encounters a sadistic bandit. Quite an involved plot.
Yeah. What I would say about this one is, after the first sort of 20 minutes, about a million things happen in this film. It's you introduced to all these characters, and then they all basically die really quickly. Characters appear out of nowhere, and then they die. And yeah, it's a pretty crazy film, actually.
It's pretty goddamn crazy. And in the opening title sequence, you're introduced to the lead actor, Paul Naschy. And he is the werewolf. And true to the title, in this film, there is a werewolf and there is a Yeti. And as you can imagine, I expected at the end that they would have a battle for it to be werewolf versus Yeti. And indeed, they do not disappoint. But this Paul Naschy is made up to be a werewolf at many points in the film. And yeah, it's quite convincing. It's quite an old school looking werewolf, and I quite liked it. Like I said about the last film, it does have a certain charm. It's cheaply done, but it's effective as well. What are your thoughts on the werewolf, Greg?
Yeah, so the werewolf transformation, because you've got to bear in mind this is the 70s, it's more akin to the classic Universal Wolfman films, Lon Chaney, where it's that kind of transformation where it's like a slow dissolve, like it's a man and then it's a bit hairier and then he's a bit hairier again and he just keeps getting hairier and then eventually he's the Wolfman. There's no like, American Werewolf in London, like amazing kind of plastic kind of, transformation scenes here. But yeah, once he does become the werewolf, it is clearly a man in a costume.
Yeah, but I mean, the hair on his face, the teeth and everything, it's quite well done.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very well done. Now, the interesting thing about this film is, as you say, it's this character Valdemar Daninsky. It's played by Paul Naschy, who's the most famous actor in the history of Spanish horror. I believe he's described as the Spanish Boris Karloff.
Yeah, king of Spanish horror cinema, I believe.
Yes. Now, this character he plays in this film is very interesting because it's almost like a James Bond-like character in the sense that I think this is like the 7th or the 8th film that this character has actually appeared in. And I think in all of them, he becomes a werewolf at some point, and at the end, he gets cured. So he's become a werewolf at least 8 times.
Yeah, he must be getting pretty goddamn used to it by now.
Probably, yeah. He does seem to become a werewolf quite a lot.
But like you say with Bond, he does seem to get the chicks as well.
Yeah. So, this is the mid-70s, and Paul Naschy, he must be like, I don't know, every Spanish woman's idea of like some stud, because all the women in this film seem to want to fuck Paul Naschy.
That's because he is hairy like animal.
Yes, exactly. Well, he's a beast. Clearly, it's a bestial lust.
They can't help themselves.
No, exactly.
Well, he does go on a bit of a rampage. Between him and the Yeti, there are 31 deaths in this film, which brings the count up from the last one quite considerably.
Yeah, it's an insane number of deaths. And the film is about, I would say, 85 and 90 minutes long. So we're talking a death approximately every 3 minutes on average. Which is quite a lot, and a lot of them, as I said, are characters that just seem to appear and then go about 5 minutes later.
Yeah, and there's a rather hilarious start to the film where they find a scalp of a Yeti, an authentic one, I believe, and they kind of throw it about a bit, which is funny. And besides that, we've got some very interesting names and characters. So you've got Seka Khan, which is the main baddie that they're looking for in this temple, where they go to find the cure. He's got like evil, vampy, sort of femme fatale woman called Vandessa, is it? Vandessa?
Yeah.
And she is like his evil sidekick or partner. And you've got one of the tribesmen that they meet is called Tiger Passan. So they've all got very interesting names and characters, and it is a little over the top in places. Yeah,
so it's very Bond-esque in that they go from London at the start of the film to Kathmandu, of all places, which apparently is where this film takes place.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. So everything is kind of filmed out in the mountains, apparently in Kathmandu.
However you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got lots of random Sherpas. You got lots of snow. One of the things I'll say that's definitely a positive in this film is the way it looks. I think it's very, very beautifully shot. I really like the shots of the snowy hills and mountains. I really like the interiors in this film. The production design is really good. It kind of reminded me of Hammer in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is like that. And I think, again, I like that sort of old school feel to it. I thought it was wonderful. Kathmandu, is that in Tibet, incidentally?
Yeah, it's either in Tibet or Mongolia. It's in that kind of part of the world.
Yeah, and it is absolutely beautiful where they have filmed it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you've got in this film is a lot of people wandering around in what must be sub-zero temperatures, wearing what appear to be just big coats and goggles.
Poor actors and actresses in this film.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hey, at least when you're wearing the werewolf costume, at least you're going to be nice and warm, aren't you?
Yeah, and he's got that on under his clothes as well, so
yeah,
double layers.
You have, as you say, lots of female nudity. I think at least half, if not most, of the female cast in this do get naked at some point.
Yeah, especially the two nymphs that he meets, who are sort of floating around in sheer robes, as you would expect some nymphs to be doing.
Yes. So our main character, Valdemar, he gets... I don't even know why. The plot doesn't really make a lot of sense in this film. This is a kind of film where so much happens, you just gotta just take it in and not really think about it too much. As soon as you start thinking about things, the whole film is going to fall apart at the seams for you. But anyway, he goes off by himself with his guide, who is called Joel, that very Spanish name. Joel disappears into thin air, never see him again, don't even see how he dies, just vanishes. And then, yeah, so our man Valdemar, he ends up in a cave with two... I don't even know what these women are supposed to be. Are they supposed to be vampires? Are they supposed to be cannibals? Not really sure.
They're kind of cannibalistic nymphs.
Yeah, I'd say it's a very apt description for them. So, yeah, two cannibalistic nymphs who somehow managed to turn him into a werewolf.
Yeah, and they do have sort of vampire teeth at some point. Yeah, you are right.
Definitely. And he kills both of them, and they disintegrate into thin air.
Yeah. Well, it's after he's had sex with them, so...
Well, yeah, definitely. He has a big old threesome with them at one point. So, again, bestial lust took over them.
Yeah, and then they disintegrate.
Absolutely. And then what happens after that is, he turns into a werewolf and he kills loads of random people. And then you kind of think, well, where's this going to go? Because he's now a werewolf and you've got all these people who are trying to find this Yeti, in the middle of the mountains. And then all these bandits appear, seemingly out of nowhere. So yeah, we're introduced to all these other characters like Sekar Khan and his lady. And
Van Dessa,
yep.
Who I loved. She kind of reminded me of The Love Witch, but the Spanish version. And kind of a bit like Chora Satana meets Betty Page. She's a bit of a sort of vampy. She's like a vampiress herself.
Yeah, they have a very bizarre relationship. I think she is like the power behind the throne, so to speak. And she's interested in I don't know. I kind of thought at one point he was going to turn out to be the Yeti himself, this Sekar Khan guy, because I assumed he turns into a Yeti and they have a big fight at the end. But that isn't what happened. The Yeti is just a Yeti.
Yeah, it's weird because he's got some kind of skin complaint, and she's telling him, which I assumed was from being attacked by one of the beasts or something. Usually when you get a cut or some kind of injury from one of the beasts, the blood will get infected, and that's usually the story in one of these types of films. Well, she's applying cream or ointment to his back and telling him that she can fix this problem that he's got with these wounds. But it's never really explained, and it turns out that that's the power that she's got over him, is that she's actually lying to him and she can't really fix it, but she's keeping him close to her so she can have the power. It's a really weird setup, and you think it's going to be related to the Yeti, but it just isn't at the end.
No, it's almost pointless that they're even in the film, because as I say, they're only in the film for maybe about 15 minutes tops, I would say.
Written in to make this kind of evil, sexy couple add interest to the film, I think.
Yeah.
Like I say, I did like her, and he was quite interesting as well, but it doesn't really relate to the plot that much.
No, and because, the plot goes at about 1,000,000 miles an hour. There's a lot of, I would say, apart from the way the film looks, which I said I really liked, I would say that there are a few things that really, really stood out in the film, death-wise. Because our man Sekar Khan, he's got all these wounds in his back, I think basically what they're doing, Wandessa, is trying to get a skin graft to maybe cover his back.
Yeah.
And she literally takes this from the back of a random slave woman.
Yeah, that bit is quite brutal, isn't it? I was quite
That's pretty
shocked,
brutal,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an impressive death in the film, and I guess that's the reason for his skin problem after all, but yeah, it is weird because it doesn't quite tie into the plot that well, but it is one of the most standout parts of the film, I would say.
Yeah, it's very, very brutal. It's I would say that's probably the most brutal bit of the whole film is yeah, when this poor woman has this huge section of skin taken from her back.
Yeah.
Um
I mean,
second
even though it's quite cheaply done and it's quite obvious, it's you still get the effects of it, and it still makes you just like look away and cringe to see it happening.
I would say second to that is probably where Vendetta herself dies, because yeah, that's pretty. I mean, you don't really see anything, but just the idea of it is pretty messed up.
So she gets stabbed in her lady parts.
Yeah, which seems to happen quite a lot in these video nasties. I've noticed.
I've noticed that as well.
Yeah, it's quite a popular way of dispatching a lady is stabbing her right in her vajayjay.
Yeah. And a couple of other notable deaths where there ends up being like a pit of spikes, which again I think is quite Bond-esque and quite old school. And this pit of spikes, a couple of people end up falling into that, which is quite cool.
Yeah, there's also one of the characters, again, there's far too many characters to try and keep up with, but there's a character who halfway through the film, this guy called Ralph, he gets impaled on a spike.
Is that not Larry?
It could be, I don't know. It was some guy in the group, he wasn't there. There's one guy in the group that was a bit rapey, and he got killed. There's a guy who got shot, and there's a guy who got impaled on a spike.
Yeah. And when it gets rapey, I mean, we've got the love interest of our werewolf, played by Paul Naschy, Valdemar.
Who apparently he's known since she was a child, by the way. I think that's the story of the film from the start. It's like, oh, my, how you've grown.
Oh, yeah, that was so weird and, like, sleazy. And she's like, ooh, but it's just, like, a bit sick, really. I didn't like that
Swooning over Mr. Paul Naschy, of course.
Yeah, of course. Very dashing as he is. But, yeah, she's called Sylvia. And at frequent parts of this film, some people try to, like, attack her sexually. And he comes to the rescue, but only when he's the werewolf, so he can, like, properly tear people up and kill them. And he's, like, literally, he's got no kind of... there's no holding back when he's in that form. Yeah, and he's got... no sympathy for any people at all, so he just doesn't care when he's a werewolf.
Yeah, and I thought it was quite funny. About halfway through the film, Valdemar and Sylvia, they end up in this house of this random old man who doesn't even have a name. And at some point he says, oh, I'm going to turn into werewolf, so I need to go away for 3 days. And they just randomly fuck out of nowhere. It was like they cut about 10 minutes out the film. I just found it very abrupt.
Well, strange, yeah. And he's like, I've got to go away, I'm not going to tell you why. And she's like, oh, tell me why. And he won't, but he chains himself to this tree, and then she sees him and she knows what's going on then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, very, very out of nowhere. I mean, obviously it was going to happen because it always does in these sorts of films. And, there are a couple of other parts that I found quite funny. There's a section where there are a group of Sherpas or bandits who are attacking the main group. And I love in films like this where you've got obvious stunt performers, because what happens is when a couple of them get shot and they're stood on like a top of like a really high kind of perch, they take really, really overly dramatic dives from like the top to the floor, and it looks absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny. I did like that.
What I also liked is in the main battle between Valdemar and Sekar Khan. I mean, the battle's awesome and it's kind of over the top and hilarious anyway. At one point, Valdemar does a kip up and a drop kick, wrestling style. I have never been in a fight, everybody, but if I did get in a fight, I would like to throw a drop kick.
It is quite over the top.
Yeah, it's amazing, yeah.
And all the while, Sylvia's then trying to find this cure, which is in the form of these red flowers, and they need the flowers to be mixed with the blood of a young woman, which is very convenient because she is a young woman and she has blood.
Yeah, what if she was an old woman? He'd be fucked then, wouldn't he?
Yeah, they just have to like get some blood from a young woman from somewhere. But yeah, like eventually there's a battle at the end where the Yeti, which isn't around that much, does meet the wolf, who has stolen the show in terms of the amount of deaths in this film. And they do have a battle, and you're kind of rooting for the wolf because he's her love interest, and we haven't really got to know the Yeti, but we do know the wolf as a man, so we know his character more, so you're kind of rooting for him to win. And it's a bit sort of touch and go, and you're not really sure what's going to happen. And she does eventually find this cure just in the nick of time. But whilst this is all going on, I don't know if you noticed, but the Yeti noises, the dub for that is absolutely hilarious. It's just like the worst beast noises ever, just very pathetic sounding.
Yeah, and it just looks like they're wrestling. It's, obviously the film's called The Werewolf and the Yeti, and like you say, you're kind of waiting the whole film for this epic grudge match between these two beasts. And hey, it was all right, but at the end of the day, it's like, it was a little bit of a letdown if you're looking for kind of, Godzilla versus King Kong, Alien versus Predator. Although, Alien vs Predator is kind of shit, to be honest. But you know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus.
Yeah, that's another standout one, of course.
Yeah.
Even better than Alien vs Predator.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, give me Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus over Alien vs Predator any day. Fuck that.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll remake this Werewolf versus the Yeti one day and do it properly rather than two men wrestling in hairy costumes. Who knows?
Well, they'll do it in CGI and it won't be as good, I don't think.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun film. I preferred Night of the Demon, I have to say. But it's quite a fun film. It's long. A lot happens. It's not the worst one that we've watched. What are your thoughts on it, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's definitely not boring. I mean, with Night of the Demon, the deaths are more hilarious, and the deaths are the highlight. But in between that, you do have these long sections of tedium. Whereas in this film, it's the first 20 minutes or so is quite slow going. But then after that, there are about a million things that happen. And there's no opportunity for you to get bored whatsoever. It is a very entertaining film. It kind of reminds me, I know obviously it's a very, very similar kind of style and country, but obviously, do you remember Night of the Bloody Apes?
Yeah.
It sort of had that kind of feel of it. Now obviously that film's Mexican and this film's Spanish, but yeah, it just kind of gave me that feel of it. I say I like the way the film looks. It's very kind of like mid-70s, hammery. I like Hammer, of course, as you'd expect someone like me to. And yeah, like I say, it's fun. It's not gonna, change your life or anything. But as video nasties go, I would say that this is probably somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of full moons in this film as well.
Imagine. A lot of full moons. Yeah, that come really out of nowhere.
Really frequently.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, do you think that this should have been a video nasty?
Oh, of course. I'm going to say no, because this film, again, it's really, really not that. It's not mean-spirited. I mean, yeah, you've got like nudity and stuff like that, but that's kind of more of the time that it was made, and maybe because it's European as well. So those kind of films will have a lot of nudity. Not that there's really anything wrong with that, because the women are quite lovely, but hey. But yeah, I'm going to say no.
Okay, well, I am denied about this, but I'm going to say no as well, even though there is an orgy and there is implied or attempted rape in this. Yeah, and there's cannibalism as well. But none of this actually happens. It's just kind of, they try to do these things, but they never actually pull it off. So I'm going to say no.
Wow. So if there'd been a massive orgy, you may have possibly said there should have been a video nasty.
I can see why they banned it back then, but I think it's okay now. It's more that the attempted rape is the problem in this film, but they don't go too far with that, so there's no actual rape in this film.
No, I mean, it's weird. This film was actually prosecuted, which is quite odd if you think about it. So if we look at sort of, if you look online at the films which actually were prosecuted and films which made the list but weren't actually prosecuted, this is one of the ones that was prosecuted, which is quite, I don't know, it's kind of weird to me. I mean, I can kind of see why, as you said, but it's really...
Does it say why? Does it say what the grounds are for it?
I mean, I don't have that in front of me, but I imagine it would probably be for the violence. I mean, like you say, you've got the woman with the skin being taken off her back. I guess that is quite gory.
Yeah.
So maybe for that, or there's a lot of nudity in it, and it's a woman being put in like a situation where she's being threatened by men.
Yeah.
I guess. As I said, I'm actually quite hard to kind of, offend, I guess, with these sorts of things. So I'm like, that was alright, I don't think there's anything that wrong there. If it was up to me, none of these films would be banned, but, hey.
Yeah, you're perhaps a little too chilled about this, I'd say.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Which is going to be quite interesting when we talk about our next film, actually, because, we're going to have to tread very, very carefully with this one. There are 4 films on the Video Nasties list that come under the subcategory of exploitation, which is called Nazi-sploitation, of which this film that we're going to talk about right now, The Beast in Heat, is one of them. Now, what I'm going to say, and, this is just putting this out there, now, because this is one of the Video Nasties, we have to talk about it. Now, I'm not a Nazi. Ria, pretty sure you're not a Nazi.
Definitely not.
No, Ria is not a Nazi. The show, we don't promote or recommend anyone follows, a very, very far right kind of policy or anything like that. Look, at the end of the day, when we talk about the film, it's going to be very clear. Obviously, we don't try to offend people. We're not looking to upset anyone. But look, we're going to talk about the film, and it's going to be very much as is. This is just what happened in the film. So if you don't want, if you don't want to listen to us talking about a film about the Third Reich, by all means, don't listen. But hey, if you've come this far and you are not offended by this kind of thing, great. We're going to talk about that right now.
Yeah, and you definitely wouldn't want to listen to our next episode if that's the case as well, because we're going to study 3 more. However, I have actually just shuddered looking at the title of this film, because this is the first one that I've watched in terms of Nazi-sploitation films, and this is, well, let's say quite a handful, this film.
Yeah, so the alternative titles for this are Horrifying Experiments of SS Last Days, that verbatim, that's what it's called, SS Hell Camp, which I think is what it's more commonly known, and SS Experiment Camp 2, which it's not a sequel to SS Experiment Camp, let's put it that way. Now, it's an Italian film. The Italians love their kind of exploitation films, and they love ripping off more well-known films. So this is very much a clone of Ilse She-Wolf of the SS, and it's directed by Luigi Bazzella, who also directed another Nazi-sploitation film called Achtung, the Desert Tigers, which I've seen. Is actually kind of similar to this.
Is it worth watching?
No. It's
okay.
Kind of, well, I don't want to spoil the review. It's also shit. It's a bit less shit than this film, and it's not as outrageous either.
Well,
so yeah,
Ilse
not
has
a lot of point watching this one.
Yeah, Ilse has its merits. I quite like watching that just for kind of film reference, and I like her character and
for research.
Yeah, for research. But The Beast in Heat, wasn't too enthralled by that one, let's just say. Anyway, I do kind of have a synopsis. It turns out that nobody online wanted to write a synopsis for this film, particularly on IMDb. So there is one up there that looks quite long. I'm going to try and make it more concise. None of it is going to sound elegant or desirable to watch, so I apologise in advance, but I'll give it my best shot. It's a 1977 film, and the synopsis is: a beautiful, nefarious senior female SS officer creates a genetic mutant human beast, half man, half beast, which is a mongoloid sex fiend which she uses to torture and molest female prisoners while Nazis watched. This vertically challenged beast is kept on a diet of mega aphrodisiacs. There are sadistic titillations, gore and nudity in this Nazi subgenre exploitation flick. I told you it wasn't elegant.
No, but I think it does a pretty good job of explaining kind of what some of the plot is, really.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, really. I wasn't expecting what we got in this film, but there we go.
Alright, where the fuck do we start with this one?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh god. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, we could start with how many deaths there are.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, let's start off with the deaths, shall we? So, fuckloads of people die in this film. Now, they die not in maybe the way that you would expect, based on what Ria said the synopsis is. So, one half of the film is about this Ilsa clone called Dr. Cratch, who is basically performing these weird experiments that involve a short, hairy man who molests women to death.
And generally he gurns at the camera whilst dry humping women.
And makes very, very weird noises, yeah. There's that, but really that only takes up about 10 minutes of the film itself. The rest of the film involves kind of these partisans who are this underground resistance movement, which is a trait of a lot of these Nazi exploitation films, where, yeah, there's this underground resistance movement. They want to take down the Nazis. Incidentally, these are the most Italian-looking Nazis I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, very true. I did think that myself.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, anyway,
so
death-wise...
How many deaths did you get? Because we've had to take a tally on this, and I had to pause the film several times to try and count, and the state of my notebook is quite a sight to behold.
Yeah.
How many deaths did you total up on the tally, Greg?
Right, so I got 95.
Okay, well, so I got 85, so I feel like we might compromise and go in the middle and go at 90 for this one.
Yeah, although fuck knows we're not going to talk about every single death in this film because we'll be here all night. And yeah, I don't really want to talk about this film for that long, really.
No, and one of the worst parts of this film is the fact that they've got footage from somewhere else, another film perhaps, in here, of soldiers shooting or being shot. And it's kind of like the Groundhog Day of deaths here, because they just put it on loop, and I'm pretty sure that the same guys die several times, but they just try to make it look different.
Yes, so yeah, this film is really not meant to be taken very seriously at all. Well, by that, what I mean is there's no way any serious person could take this seriously at all. So, for example, as Ria's already mentioned, there is footage taken from other films and inserted into the film itself. Now,
and it looks quite different, doesn't it, Greg?
Yeah, so you can tell it's a different film because the grade of stock is different. So, for example, it's a lot sort of dirtier. I think the film grade is older, it's more worn, so it just looks very odd.
Yeah, it does. It's weird. You can tell it's just sort of been sandwiched in there. It doesn't look like the same film at all.
No, so people die who are in a completely different film and they make it look as if it's in this film, which is quite funny. Another thing that happens in the film is there's scenes where people are being bombed by a plane, but when they shoot the plane, it's clearly a model plane.
I didn't actually notice that, but that's brilliant. I did notice that there are a lot of Germans in this film with very British accents.
Yeah, that's another thing. So the dubbing in this is absolutely horrendous. So our Ilsa clone, Dr. Crouch, has this ridiculously overly British accent, which makes everything she says sound absolutely just nonsensical and ridiculous.
And much like Ilsa, she's very strikingly beautiful looking, Her makeup is fantastic. Her hairstyling is fantastic. She's very stern and just very attractive woman. So I do quite like her character in this. And she's got her 2 sidekicks, which these domineering women in these SS films do seem to have. So there's always 3 of them kind of marching around together. So she's got her backup with her at all times. And she performs a few violent deaths just to killings just to show how harsh she is as a leader. And there's a woman gets shot in the vagina by a soldier after he rapes her, and she sort of initiates the soldiers doing these things. But then she does actually tease one of the men that they're torturing, and she cuts off his penis with a knife while they're hanging up. And there's all kinds of things like that happen. Quite often they have these prisoners naked and in lines so she can just look at them and stuff. So it's quite weird in that sense of the film.
Yeah, so, as we're going to find out is typical with a lot of these Nazi exploitation films, yes, there's an incredible amount of nudity. All the women in the film do appear naked at some point or another. It's very, very heavily fetishized. This one, there is a lot of sexual violence for no reason other to, I guess, titillate. But is there anyone out there who would actually find this titillating at all? It's just horrendous.
I don't think so. And as with all of these films, there's a lot of 70s ladies' pubic hair. A lot of it. It was the era of pubic hair.
Oh yeah, definitely. I haven't seen that much bush since the 90s.
Yeah, and they're literally standing in rows with all of it hanging out, so there we go.
Yes, and again, I'm going to sound horrible, and I don't mean to be, but I did find it unintentionally hilarious. Like right near the beginning of the film, Doctor, there's this naked woman brought into the room, and she says, "You're very pretty." And I was like, no, she isn't.
Yeah, she does say that a lot. It's very creepy. And at one point, somebody, I can't remember who it is that says to her, but they say to her, "Oh, you're just a bitch on heat." And it's kind of, lending to the film because the film is The Beast in Heat. So I'm not sure if that's where they got the title from, but it sounds like they should have done.
Yeah, probably. It wouldn't surprise me. Another kind of key thing that seems to happen a lot in these Nazi exploitation films is bad dubbing of really stupid sort of what's supposed to be German accents. So right near the beginning, there's a captain who is on the phone to his commanding officer, and the commanding officer says, "You are useless."
We have ways of making you talk. There's lots of that.
Oh god, yeah. So a low, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, and there's some really strange torturing. So at one point, a woman has all these electrodes attached to her vagina, and she says, "Oh, it's just a caress." It's not serious torture.
God.
And then they put this bucket on a woman, and they heat it up on the top. So that's supposed to be torture.
Well, what's supposed to happen is, and this was a legitimate torture that people used in olden days, is they took some rats and put them on a person's stomach under a bucket, heat the bucket. Now the heat is going to make the rats go absolutely crazy and then try and eat their way out. So that is legit. However, they don't use rats, do they?
No.
Would you like to tell the listeners what they use instead of rats?
They use guinea pigs.
Not only guinea pigs painted black. And one of them falls off the woman's stomach in the scene as well.
I think they put some nibbles on her stomach to keep them there, but they look very friendly, and they don't look in the slightest bit menacing.
No.
And I did not expect that they were going to use guinea pigs, and it's a good job that the sound wasn't on, because I'm sure they would have been making some very cute little squeaky noises.
No, on the soundtrack they try and put on some ominous sort of rat sound effects on there, but it's clearly not. It's a fucking guinea pig.
Oh my god.
But that wasn't my favourite part of the film. Oh no. There was something that I found even more hilarious than the guinea pigs. I've got to be honest, like, I've known about the film for years, and I knew, like, the key thing that everyone says about it is, like, oh, you know, they use guinea pigs instead of a rat. So
Yeah,
I already knew that.
For me, that was my favourite part of the film. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, it is so ridiculous, isn't it? And
Yeah.
actually, in that scene, there was something else that I found not quite as funny as the guinea pigs, because, you know, what is there that can top guinea pigs? But there's a woman who's supposed to be having her fingernails pulled off, but they're clearly fake.
Yeah, she's basically got red hands with false fake blood on, and then they've put false nails on, and they're pulling them off with pliers, and she's just going, "Ah, you're hurting me."
Yeah, that convincing. Like, oh no, you're hurting me.
Yeah, and I have to say though, false nails are quite tricky to get off once they're glued on, so you know it can be a little bit of a chore.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are, but they're not supposed to be false nails. They're supposed to be real.
Yeah, it's not that convincing, but yeah, the guinea pigs for me were the stars of the show.
Yes. You also have death by having your pubic hair ripped off.
Yeah. Or like a pubic wig or a merkin gets ripped off.
Yeah, it's clearly a merkin. And you loved, because we watched this film together at one point, and you loved the faces that the beast was making while he was eating this pubic hair.
Yeah, because I don't understand why he would want to eat that. I mean, she's clearly very distressed that he's ripped it off and it is bleeding where he's pulled the hair off. But I don't really get the whole point of this, why it's supposed to be that bad. I mean, she's basically just got a free wax there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he eats it and I really don't get that. I'm just like, would he want to do that? I'm not sure he would. It's got to be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, now as someone who's never been waxed, you'll be surprised to hear, I'm guessing that's not what happens.
No, usually that's not what happens.
No. Although that was not what I laughed at the most. What I laughed at the most is there is a ridiculously huge battle that breaks out between the partisans and the German army, which includes about half of it is stock footage, and it's impossible to keep track of what's going on. It's actually the worst battle scene that I've ever watched in any film ever. But what I loved is not only was it the ridiculous reactions of everyone when they die, because what I've noticed in these films is people will get shot and there's no effects budget, so people don't have like bullet wounds or blood squibs or anything like that, so people just collapse on the floor or jump up in the air.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, definitely. There was a point where one character, for some reason or other, does the most unnecessary forward flip to pick up a rifle I've ever seen in any movie. It's literally out of nowhere. They just decided just to do a flip.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I did laugh. I did laugh
unbelievable.
Almost as much as the guinea pigs.
Yeah, to me that was like the ultimate thing in the film that was shit. Another thing that's shit, because you'll probably notice there's quite a lot in this film that's shit. Another thing that's been pointed out many, many times is there's a scene of a car pulling up to the front of the building where the Nazi sort of headquarters is, and in the shot you can see the shadow of the cameraman and indeed the whole film crew filming the scene.
Yeah.
It's really obvious.
I mean, it's almost as bad as in, I think it's the Night of the Demon, where we see the actual beast and you can see that his arms are in the shot but his body is just a human chest that's been cut away, so he's literally just wearing hairy arms and his normal chest. I mean, it's pretty shoddy, but yeah, it's kind of up there with the fact that you can see the actual crew in this film.
Yeah, absolutely amateur hour filmmaking, up there with the ghastly ones, cutting away.
Yeah, and yeah, it was just hideous, this whole concept of this beast. The ending is quite satisfying, that she gets captured by her own monster that she's created, and she does deserve it, and everybody's kind of quite glad and they let it happen. So there is that about the film. But overall, it's quite a disgusting concept. it's horrendous to sort of try to watch those parts where they're faking this kind of dwarf beast rape. I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, it's pretty horrific idea-wise, and it's all done for shock value, and it's just more disgusting than anything else.
Yeah, it's in incredibly bad taste. It doesn't matter how shoddy it is, and believe me, a lot of it is shoddy. There's literally no way you can defend it other than just by saying, well, look, it's so shit, there's no way you could possibly take it seriously and be offended by it. But really, it's absolutely indefensible, in my opinion.
Yeah, whatever way you look at it, you can't, find it funny or amusing. It's just pretty disgusting and brutal. Yeah.
Like I said, the other two films, I mean, fair enough. I mean, there are things in there you can kind of see, okay, I can maybe see why those films were banned, but I don't think they're very mean-spirited. Whereas this film, it's like, well, you'll be pleased to know, yes, I do think it should have been a video nasty. Yeah. Definitely. Just because, I mean, compared to other Nartsploitation films, this is pretty... I mean, it's not there's one example that I can think of where it's very, very, very serious and not cheesy. This is incredibly cheesy, but at the same time, it's well, you're asked to kind of bask in, people, allegedly being sort of raped by, this short, hairy man.
Yeah, and all of the Nazis watching her, get this beast to do that, they're all enjoying it and getting aroused and encouraging it, and that is pretty gross in itself. And the other thing is that the casting of that guy as the beast, for the way that he looks and everything, is actually really gross as well. And you do see him naked a lot, which is, it's done in bad taste, even that as well. I mean, there's a lot of naked men and women in this film, whereas usually it's outweighed and it's usually boobs or naked women and not much of men's sort of lower regions. But in this film you see it all, and it's just it's not done well at all. It's just all kind of grotesquely done, and it's difficult to watch in places.
Yes. However, to end the review on a slightly lighter note, there were a couple of bits that I thought were unintentionally hilarious, maybe I'm just sick, or bits that I think were supposed to be funny that really weren't funny at all. So at one point, the Nazis are kind of trying to find these partisans, so they're in the town, rounding up all the women. At one point, one of them throws a baby in the air and shoots it.
Yeah, the soldiers shoot it.
Which you don't see, but that's clearly what it's supposed to be, which, I think that's supposed to be upsetting. I laughed. It
is very silly. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. A lot of shots are out of focus, which is and noticeably out of focus as well. So again, more hilariously sort of bad sort of filmmaking. There's a Reverend character at one point. He says, "The Lord won't betray you. He's the best."
I didn't catch that bit. That's hilarious. There's some quite tense Western music throughout the film, which is quite funny.
Oh, the music in this film is so terrible. The opening music in the film sounds to me like a bad 80s video game.
Yeah.
Sounds like the sort of thing which ironically probably should be in Altered Beast, talking about beasts for the whole show. Rise from your grave. Something like that.
It's quite funny, the man that gets held upside down naked. Just over a tank of water.
And he's got a really small penis as well. I'm sorry, it was hard to not to notice that he has a tiny, tiny dick.
Yeah, it's kind of right up there in front of the camera, so it's difficult not to see that.
Yeah, it's all up in your area.
It is.
So yeah, overall, it is a piece of shit. I'm not going to say kind of a piece of shit. It is a piece of shit. It's not very well made. It's pretty reprehensible in a lot of ways. But another thing about it is all the stuff we're talking about, with, the Doctor and the Beast, that is, as I said, it's only 10 minutes of the film. The rest of it is all this stuff with his partisans, and there's too many groups of partisans. It's hard to follow. You've no idea what's going on, who's who. I say, I watched this film twice, and yeah, on the second watch, I did kind of know what was supposed to be happening. But again, there's way too many characters to follow. It's just,
It's so confusing. Definitely going to agree with you that this is definitely a video nasty and should have been a video nasty. Watch this if you're curious, because it is an eye-opener, let's put it that way. But overall, I would not recommend this film. And as I do always say about the Lament Configuration podcast, horror podcast, is that we watch these so you don't have to.
Indeed, exactly. And you'll be absolutely shocked to find out that this film is not available in the UK.
What a surprise. I wonder why.
Yeah, it was very, very hard to see the BBFC ever passing this one. Now, surprisingly, there is one film that we are going to talk about on the next show that actually has been passed by the BBFC, but that's a bit more of a softer film. I can never see this film ever being passed.
Never. I can't see anybody wanting to re-release this either. I mean, who would want to be associated with it? That's the problem.
Yeah, and apparently, on video, this is actually one of the rarest video nasties there is.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'll keep an eye open for that one on my travels.
Definitely. So, that's our Hairy Beast video nasty show, done and dusted. Now, you already said your favourite was Night of a Demon. I think my favourite was probably the Werewolf and the Yeti, but Night of a Demon is quite fun as well.
Yeah, they're both pretty good ones to watch. Definitely recommend Night of the Demon.
Yes, so by all means, check out the first two, maybe not the third one, unless you are into that sort of thing, and you're a sick motherfucker, maybe, like me.
For those of you that are curious about extreme horror and violent and banned films of the past, perhaps like today, the more extreme ones, you should definitely check out our next show, which is all about Nazi exploitation films.
Yes, where we'll be joined by a very, very, very special guest. I won't give away who right now. You'll have to listen to the show, but it's very, very, very much worth it. They are definitely an expert in the field of Nazi-exploitation. Let's put it that way. Yeah,
we definitely needed a hand with this topic, so we asked someone who knows.
Yes. So end the show with the plugs in the usual way. So my name's Greg Knox. This is Lament Configuration. If you have not done so already, you can subscribe to our Facebook page, which is the Lament Configuration Podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. We're also on Podbean. We're also on Stitcher. And we're also on TuneIn Radio. So if you're subscribed to us and you're listening to all the shows, great. If you're not, why aren't you? Listen to all our shows immediately.
Yeah, there's a lot on there for you to look at now from our back catalogue, so you can find something on there that you will no doubt enjoy. For anybody who's subscribed to us on iTunes or who is likely to be doing that, I would love it if you could give us 5 stars as a review on iTunes. Now, you don't have to leave a review, but if you wish to, you can, of course, leave in quotation marks the words, Jesus wept. Those of you who love Hellraiser as much as we do will get it. I've been Ria as always. You can join me on my Facebook modelling and actress page, Ria Fend, that's F-E-N-D. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at Ria_Fend. And I look forward to the next show. Well, I use the term looking forward to quite loosely, let's say.
I'm off to unleash my inner bestial lust on my cat, because my cat is annoying the fuck out of me, because she can't behave herself. And I'm going to leave you with the lovely song from the beginning of Night of the Demon. It's amazing. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.